Supergirl has officially flopped. Warner Bros. As well as DC Films are bracing for anywhere from an $80 to $125 million loss. But I cannot stop thinking about how this was both inevitable and completely avoidable. And considering that DC Films have always been a very mixed bag, they don't really have a lot of funds to continue to pull from. It seems like this could mean some big changes to what the DC universe looks like in the future, so I wanted to talk about what that future might look like, as well as why we are in this spot to begin with Supergirl. So join me as we do that, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. It always helps out a small channel like this one. Did you see Supergirl? If so, what did you think of it? And if not, is there a reason that you didn't? But let's go ahead and get on into this. I've seen some articles say that the New York Times specifically blamed Supergirl's flop on misogyny. And look, I'm actually one of the people that is very sympathetic to that usually, because there is a massive issue with misogyny, particularly in Hollywood and media. But it is so very clear that this specific film failed because they put a massive budget into a basically B-tier character. Ultimately, Supergirl needed anywhere from $350 to $425 million just to break even. Which you might think, okay, well, there are superhero movies that get billions, so maybe they can do that. But to really get an idea of where Supergirl was going, all we had to do was look at Superman 2025, which was not a box office flop, but it certainly wasn't a major success and actually lost money. Not a ton, but still. Superman made about $650 million at the global box office, of which they get to keep 50%. Specifically, around $250 million came from the global box office, while domestically it made around $400 million. And the reason that this is important is because, one, DC does not usually do very well overseas. I think the thing that did best was Aquaman, which is surprising, but generally speaking, it's not something that the studios can rely on. At least not DC Studios, that is. And when we look at Superman versus Supergirl, there's one major glaring issue. Supergirl is just nowhere near as popular as Superman. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, etc. are basically the S tier that we have, where Supergirl maybe falls into the A tier or even the top of B tier. And in order to back this up, I wanted to kind of find a way to see how much space these characters take up in the mind of the collective consciousness. And so what I decided to do was to use Google Trends, which is not perfect. Of course, there's a big difference between Googling something and going and buying a ticket to see it and whatnot, but it does give us an idea of the popularity of these characters and how much people think about them. And oh boy, it is not good for Supergirl. Supergirl came in tied at the lowest of the characters that I tossed on the list, alongside Green Lantern. Superman being 18 times more popular of a search. And again, this is not a perfect one-to-one. Do I really think that Superman is 18 times as popular as Supergirl? Well, actually, wait, no, I actually probably do think that, yeah. But even if that is not exactly correct, there is still no way that when Superman, a significantly more popular character, made $650 million in its total run, that Supergirl, a character that is nowhere near its popularity, will make $350 to $425 million to just break even. To truly make money on it, it would have needed to make about as much as Superman. And that was just never going to happen. Now, why do I think this happened? Do I think that James Gunn is just stupid and whatnot? No, not exactly. I think he thought that the cameo in Superman 2025 would maybe push along Supergirl a little bit more. Although, well, people liked that film. It wasn't exactly like deeply loved or anything. But more importantly, I think, one, James Gunn is a little too close to the source material. I think that he sees Supergirl in the A category, and so he thinks, well, yeah, a lot of people know about her. But DC is in a state where we really don't have many of their characters in the constant discussions of the public. It is just Batman, Superman, and then the Batman villains, basically. Occasionally widening it to the Justice League with, like, you know, Wonder Woman and whatnot. And besides him being a little too close to the material, I think maybe he's a little arrogant, because he did take Peacemaker, a fairly unknown character, and made it really big. But that really is only because it was a strange hugely high-quality show for what it was, and it had John Cena, somebody that people deeply love and will pretty much watch anything that he's in. And now that this has done so poorly, it seems like they are going to have to shift their overall methods going forward for building the DC universe. So now let's talk a little bit about what that seems like it might look like.
First of all, it looks like they're doing some rewrites to reduce Supergirl's overall presence in the future universe, because she was meant to be kind of a tentpole figure and a larger piece to the universe as a whole. And since Wonder Woman was one of the next times that we were going to see Supergirl heavily, and it was already written, that's why they are rewriting that one specifically. But beyond minimizing Supergirl, it also seems that for their lesser known characters going towards the B and C tier, they're going to shift to mid-budget genre movies as well as series for streaming. The easiest example to point to of this is a movie that is already going to be coming out soon, actually in October of this year, and that movie is Clayface, following the Batman villain. They are specifically going to be following the version of the character that was created for the Batman animated series, where actor Matt Hagen takes this interesting chemical and puts it on his face to make himself look better, so that way he can continue being a movie star, but in the long run it simply disfigures him and requires him to need more and more of the substance. Similarly, the film is going to also utilize that premise, but is seemingly leaning into being a horror film, and particularly is meant to go hard on the body horror side of things, which makes sense for that character. Which I really like this shift, and I do hope they do that more in the future, and there's two primary reasons why I like it. The first is that, of course, horror is just doing very well right now. I love horror, and it seems like the horror genre gets more and more people that are into it every single day, so it's a smart way to capitalize on that trend. And then the second thing that I really like about it is if we have these more kind of genre-based comic movies, you'll get a lot more variation in the actual stories being told, and hopefully get to see more unique ideas. Clayface particularly is written by Mike Flanagan, who I absolutely adore. He is a phenomenal writer, and that makes me extremely excited. Although the director, James Watkins, he directed the 2024 remake of Speak No Evil, which I know you guys seem to like that. I don't understand why, okay? That movie is garbage. It has no understanding of the original or what the original was trying to say or do, and it shits on it by giving some weird happy ending at the end. Sorry, this is a side tangent. And considering Clayface is said to have cost about $100 million to make, it's definitely not the cheapest film, but it's significantly cheaper than, say, the $200 million that was put in for Supergirl. So I definitely hope they move towards more budget films like that, and I think that could be a really interesting way to save the franchise as a whole. Although their potential shifting towards streaming services and shows for these lesser known characters doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because shows can often cost just as much as these big films, if not more. But if they can find a way to do it on a budget, then it definitely could be a way to get people associated with those characters and kind of get a feel for which characters they like best, and then use that to push forward, say, a big screen appearance. But that's really all I have to say at the moment. What do you guys think? Do you think Supergirl was always going to fail, or do you think that they just did something wrong? And if so, what is it? Besides that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and my name has been Crazy Rocky, and this has been A Spoken Session.